if you move off Sean McDermott, go out there and get Ben Johnson. This team would take it to the next level. He would be able to bring what he brought to Detroit, where he leans on the run game, and that opens up the pass game, which is what the Lions want to do. And then that would open it up and take so much pressure off Josh Allen. And while we're on that, the thing that pissed me off the most about this game, the commentators are like, yeah, Bills fans have been confused why Josh Allen isn't running it more. I'm like, are you trying to get your quarterback killed? After we talk about everything that is put on Josh Allen's plate, he has to do it himself. And I'm not the biggest Josh Allen fan in the world, but I do realize he doesn't have the best coaching on offense in the world. So it's like, and you want him to run out there and put himself in harm's way when we've seen what happened to Russ. We saw what happened to Cam Newton. You take one shot from the wrong guy, like a TJ Watt or Myles Garrett, it's over. You just took 2 or 3 years off your career. Like, how stupid are Bills fans that they're complaining that Josh Allen isn't running enough?
And those Bills fans also have him on their fantasy team. And that's why they're bitching and moaning about it, because they went out there and spent a second-round pick on him. But at the end of the day, you're a Bills fan. You should be thinking 15 years. This is how long you'll have Josh Allen. And look at how long you had Jim Kelly for and what you guys accomplished with him and how long you guys suffered after him. If Josh Allen gets hit by, I know he doesn't play in the league anymore, but look at what happened to some of these guys, like who got hit by Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah.
Like your career gets cut in half. Cam was never the same after the injury.
It was TJ Watt.
TJ Watt, yeah. And it was, whether it's him, whether it's McNabb, whether it's all these other, there's plenty of examples of mobile quarterbacks that are never the same from there. Russell Wilson, another example. But, looking ahead, you guys have like a decade of greatness with Josh Allen, and you guys are ruining it. And then I want to go back to Sean McDermott. We talked about him.
Yeah.
So I was doing my research because, these coaches, they come from a large tree, and, it's like everyone's connected to an extent. So I'm like, okay, well, how did Sean McDermott get his job and where did he come from? Because I think that's important. Because, like, for example, Brian Daboll, right, grew, helped Josh Allen develop into being a top 5 quarterback in the league. And at some points is the second best quarterback in the league when he plays at his best. And then, you see him and then he goes to New York and he coaches and he shows he's a great coach. And then I looked at Sean McDermott. He was the defensive coordinator for the Panthers, who also had Ron Rivera as their head coach, who had Luke Kuechly, who had Greg Hardy, who had
Josh Norman, Thomas Davis Sr.
They had some of the best players on defense at that time.
Yeah.
And while their defense performed very well, there's no doubt about it, the 2015 Panthers were one of the best teams of the decade, no doubt about it. But again, Luke Kuechly, Greg Hardy, Josh Norman, you're talking about some of the best players of the last decade, leaders in the clubhouse, really kind of installing that defensive pedigree. And that pedigree was there before he even came there.
And like, how much stake do you put in it when you have a guy who's a defensive coordinator and then also the head coach is the defensive coordinator and Ron Rivera? Ron Rivera is a defensive guy. Yeah. Sean McDermott, defensive guy off that tree. And he did a good job kind of like establishing like a solid team, and he knew how to put players together in Buffalo, but he just doesn't know how to make the necessary adjustments to get them to the next level, hire the correct guys on his staff. He wasn't able to replace Brian Daboll. So it's like Luke Kuechly is also one of the smartest linebackers of all time, if not one of the best linebackers of all time. He had his career cut short because of some concussions, and then he had to inevitably retire. But the communication with him, Josh Norman, Thomas Davis Sr., and then having is a really killer on and off the field and Greg Hardy. But then all of that just to lose to the zombified corpse of Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl, like a guy who couldn't throw the football 5 yards down the field. That's who you lost to. Like, that's who your defense couldn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think of like some other great defenses, like them being the DC, like, and I know Rex Ryan was a DC for the Ravens, but I use the Ravens as another example.
Yeah.
You have a Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, and Ed Reed on that team. It's not that the defensive coordinator can't scheme up and, elevate the players around them. But at the same time, you have these leaders in the locker room, Hall of Fame players in the locker room. Makes your job a hell of a lot easier. Same goes if you were the DC for the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom. Broncos, same idea. Like those defenses, you can elevate their talent, you can make them better. But at the same time, you have these leaders in the locker room that's going to make their job easier.
Yeah, exactly. And with Sean McDermott, it's like he definitely has leaders on the defensive end that make it easier. But at the same time, every time you've gotten into the playoffs, you can't stop the Chiefs with 13 seconds. Everyone in that game pretty much scored every single possession. You couldn't slow down the Bengals at all. They just ran up and down the field on you in the playoffs last year, and you almost lost to Skylar Thompson. Like, that's insane to me.